This is for Palestine, Ramallah, West Bank, Gaza. This is for the child that is searching for an answer.
This is not just a war over stolen land. Why do you think little boys are throwing stones at tanks? And we'll never really know how many people are dead. They drop bombs on innocent girls while they sleep in their bed. Israel is a terror state, they're terrorists that terrorize. I'll testify my television, televise them telling lies. How many more resolutions have to be violated? How many more children have to be annihilated? This is not a war, it is systematic genocide. But whatever they try, Palestine will never die. Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine!
Hello, I'm Chris Williamson, and this is Palestine Declassified, where we highlight the struggle to liberate Palestine and expose the Zionist regime's frantic efforts to influence international policymakers and global public opinion. In today's show, we'll be considering the implications of the High Court judgment against the previous Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, for acting unlawfully when she proscribed Palestine Action as a terrorist organisation last year. But the three High Court judges who found against the government paused the enforcement of their judgment while an appeal is being decided. So in our first report, Latifa Abou-Chakra summarises the case that the High Court threw out and which the new Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, is appealing.
The British government have betrayed the British people. Palestine Action is back!
In a stunning rebuke to government overreach, judges deemed the proscription of Palestine Action a disproportionate attack on free speech. The proscription of Palestine Action was unlawful, they said, handing a resounding victory to campaigners against genocide and backers of the group's heroic disruptions of arms firms arming the genocidal Zionist settler colony. As the judgment from Dame Victoria Sharp, Mrs. Justice Stein, and Mr. Justice Swift makes clear, the ban violated fundamental rights and due process. Sharp emphasized the proscription caused very significant interference with the right to freedom of speech and freedom of assembly. The court's decision stated the Home Secretary failed to comply with her own policy, rendering the ban unlawful. Judges also ruled it breached Articles 10 and 11 of the European Convention on Human Rights, protecting freedom of expression and assembly. The proscription remains in place, however, until a 20th of February hearing where arguments on a stay pending appeal will be made. The government swiftly announced plans to appeal. Huda Amouri hailed the outcome triumphantly, declaring, "This is a monumental victory, both for our fundamental freedoms here in Britain and in the struggle for freedom for the Palestinian people," striking down a decision that will forever be remembered as one of the most extreme attacks on free speech in recent British history. The judgment dissected Palestine Action's tactics, claiming that a small number amounted to so-called terrorist acts. The group's overall nature and scale fell short of justifying proscription. Criminal law already suffices to address such offences. We are satisfied that the decision to proscribe Palestine Action was disproportionate, the judges stated. Prior to the decision, Zionist networks had amplified the government's assault on Palestine Action, with the Community Security Trust vocally endorsing the ban as vital to curb extremist activities. The Henry Jackson Society, through former fellow and Mossad spy Catherine Perez Shakdam's advocacy, which pushed for proscription. Baseless Iran funding smears dominated the news. Home Office briefings to the Times alleged Tehran proxies bankrolled the group. Private Eye uncovered these lies stemmed from CMS Strategic, Elbit Systems' PR firm, where managing director Georgia Pickering boasted of planting the story. CMS, a London-based consultancy specializing in defense sector spin, has long shielded Elbit from scrutiny over its role in the Zionist colony's military machine. Fissures emerged within the establishment. Jonathan Hall KC, the independent reviewer of terrorism legislation, a staunch Zionist, dismissed the Iran allegations outright, telling Channel 4 dispatchers no evidence existed. Even as he backed broader crackdowns, Hall's candor undermined the narrative. This reversal dismantles a tool of suppression, galvanizing efforts to dismantle the Zionist regime's supply chains.
As usual, I'm joined in the studio by the co-director of the lobbying watchdog Spinwatch and the UK's leading scholarly critic of Israel, David Miller. David's also a senior research fellow at the Centre for Islam and Global Affairs at Istanbul Zayem University. And I'm very pleased that one of the co-founders of Palestine Action, Huda Amari, is joining us as our guest contributor today to bring us up to date with the latest developments on this case. Welcome to the show. Huda, welcome back to the show and congratulations on a momentous legal triumph in the High Court. I mean, the government appointed 3 judges to consider your judicial review who were less than sympathetic, and they made a number of plainly biased findings, yet you still won a stunning legal victory. How did you pull it off?
Thanks, it's great to be back on the show, and it is an incredible victory, one that I believe was won outside of the courtroom as much as the lawyers did a brilliant job inside the court proving that this ban was unlawful. And now this means that their ruling shows that this ban was unlawful since its inception of the ban, which means all of those subsequent arrests that have happened, there have been over nearly 3,000 arrests since the ban took place, were all unlawful as well. So this is hugely significant.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, David, I mean, it seems that anti-Zionists are winning cases almost every week now.
Well, this is a process, isn't it? I mean, this is an amazing victory by Palestine Action. We've had lots of other cases recently. People have been reinstated to their positions. The crushing defeat of the campaign against anti-Semitism in the court just the other week. But of course, the state continues to oppress and repress as much as they can. As you remember, just last week, our journalist presenter, Latifa Abu Shakra, was arrested on her way to an anti-Zionist meeting. So there's a process ongoing. But yes, we are winning many cases, and that this is approaching what will be a tipping point, I think, where the Zionists will start to find that the edge of their attack is blunted.
Yeah, indeed. How far away is that tipping point then, do you think? I mean, we're winning these victories, but I mean, could you speculate, do you think, on that?
It's further away than we would like, is the answer
indeed.
to that question.
I mean, and it's obviously being led by the Zionist lobby who are pushing the politicians, but I mean, is there any light at the end of the tunnel? Do you think that we may get some politicians who may be willing to stand up to this pressure from the Zionist entity?
I think there's very little chance of that. I mean, all of the mainstream political parties in the whole of this country, including Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, are Zionist parties.
Yeah.
Of course, there is a motion at the Green Party conference upcoming, which looks like it's going to be heard, which would declare that they're an anti-Zionist party, but we don't even have the Green Party as an anti-Zionist party yet.
So we need to sweep away, basically,
the whole political establishment needs to be swept away if there's to be any possibility of supporting Palestinian rights.
Well, maybe we'll get you in Parliament one day, David. We'll speak up appropriately, I think. But Huda, I mean, how significant then do you think it is that the judgment cited infringements on the right to freedom of speech and assembly?
Yeah, I mean, you know, we were all nervous about this judgment and didn't necessarily have the highest hopes, although we believed we had a very strong case. And the reason we didn't have the highest hopes was because, you know, we knew the judges were pro-government, had many conflicts of interest, which were pointed out by other people during the judicial review. However, the finding of the ban being disproportionate to freedom of speech is very significant, as it means that the ban has to be quashed as a result. It wasn't just a procedural ground where they could get out of it. The state could get out of it and say, well, you know, we messed up on procedure, but we'll correct that and we'll ban them again. This makes it extremely difficult, if not impossible, to ban Palestine Action in the future, because it's proven to be an interference with freedom of speech and the right to protest. So it's an extremely significant ground and perhaps the most political ground to win on.
It was quite inspiring, wasn't it, Huda, to see so many people rallying to support Palestine Action and indeed being prepared to be arrested and potentially charged and facing a prison term to show that solidarity.
Yeah, it's just been incredible. I mean, we wouldn't be here without all of those people, without all of the support, the campaign to deprescribe Palestine Action, all of those people putting their liberty on the line, holding signs, risking, well, being arrested unlawfully, simply for holding a sign. I mean, it has created the most bizarre scenes that many people have never seen in their lifetime. Hundreds of people being arrested for holding a placard, but it exposed the absurdity of this ban. And it also showed that when there is an unjust law, people have the power to resist against it. And we do not have to simply sit by and abide by unjust laws.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, David, what do you make then of the lies that were being, the smears that were being circulated by Zionist groups about Palestine Action?
Well, this is what you expect from the Zionists, isn't it? But what's interesting, I think, is that a group like the Community Security Trust, which we've discussed in this show many times,
funded by the government, of course,
funded by the government and by the Zionist movement,
yes,
which is run by a convicted fraudster, which has been in existence for 30 years now. Well, if you look back even 10 years ago, they would never have made the kinds of arguments that they're now making. It's only been a short while since they've started to say that saying Free Palestine is somehow anti-Semitic. Now, they never used to make those kinds of cases, and it's the inching forward of that blurring together of alleged hatred against the Jews with anything to do with Palestine. So you make the most mild commentary about the genocide, about Palestinian rights, and that has you in the category of anti-Semitism for these groups. And that's really an indication of how far they've gone and how far they've overreached. And that's why I say that we're reaching a point where that kind of argument is going to collapse.
And I suppose also the capitulation on the discredited working definition of anti-Semitism, the IHRA working definition, is sort of, emboldened, I suppose.
Well, yeah, of course it has. I mean, the IHRA definition, of course, is not an independent definition of racism against the Jews as Jews. It's actually a definition which was created by the regime itself with input from Mossad back in the 1980s.
Yes, indeed. Well, Huda, I mean, what's your feeling about the baseless claims that Palestine Action was funded by Iran being undermined by the government's so-called independent advisor on terrorism, Jonathan Hall, who's also a staunch Zionist?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting development, and it's worth noting that we know Jonathan Hall was in the room when they decided to assess that Palestine Action could be prescribed as a terrorist organisation. I know that because of the documents we got from the judicial review. However, I do think he was being honest that a lot of that was nonsense. And so when he says, there's no smoking gun, basically, in the supposed secret evidence, he was in the room. He knows that to be true. It doesn't mean he's on side because he's being honest about that. But from his perspective, he believes we should be banned because we cause serious property damage to Israeli weapons factories to prevent the use of weapons made in Britain being used in a genocide against the Palestinian people. Obviously, we disagree on that, but it does show. We know now categorically. I mean, I already knew, it was pretty obvious, and most people knew, but it's categoric now that the Home Secretary lied to the British public to push through an unjust and unlawful ban. They pushed that smear out just a few days before the vote to prescribe Palestine Action. It was a deliberate ploy to manufacture consent for the ban.
Yes, indeed. I mean, Jonathan Hall's sort of intervention there, I mean, it's a sort of an indication, isn't it, really, that these Iranian stories have been thoroughly discredited now, haven't they?
Well, they were always ridiculous, of course, but yes, I mean, they're thoroughly discredited. And the people who've been making them, which of course is Elbit's own PR firm, the government itself, and of course the Henry Jackson Society and its former Mossad spy, Catherine Perez Shakdam. These are people who have no credibility in the first place, but nevertheless they will bring out this nonsense in order to try and, as Huda is saying, manufacture consent for the vote in Parliament.
Indeed. Well, our next report looks at the legal arguments that followed the High Court judgment and highlights the ongoing direct action against the UK's complicity in the Zionist genocide.
The High Court has declared the prescription of Palestine Action unlawful and disproportionate, but the battle rages on over whether the ban lifts now or drags through appeal. The court proposed quashing the Home Secretary's decision to prescribe Palestine Action. Lawyers for Huda Amouri are now pushing hard for an immediate quashing order arguing it would be profoundly unjust to delay relief while thousands face ongoing criminal jeopardy from the unlawful ban. Both sides must submit detailed arguments on the form of relief. The judgment stresses that no final quashing order has been issued pending these representations. The Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood confirmed the government will appeal to the Court of Appeal. It's expected to apply for a stay of any quashing order, meaning Palestine action would remain prescribed pending the appeal's outcome. Hoda Amouri and her legal team are applying for their own stay, one that suspends the prescription order immediately while any appeal proceeds. This would lift the terrorism label right away. Lawyers from both sides have until February 20th to provide further submissions. The unlawful prescription never silenced the movement. Since July 2025, activists have persisted in targeting UK complicity with Zionist genocide. Here are a few of the actions. Stop Arming Israel in Sheffield blockaded the River Don site of weapons manufacturer Forged Solutions, producing parts for Israeli F-35 fighter jets on the 22nd of July 2025, shutting down the factory. They blockaded again on the 8th of October 2025 as part of a national day of action against the F-35. Shut down Leonardo in Edinburgh took direct action at Leonardo's Edinburgh factory on the 15th of July 2025, with activists ramming a van into the external fence and blockading entrances to halt production of laser targeting systems and components for F-35 jets supplied to the Zionist regime. Further protests and blockades carried on throughout late 2025 into early 2026. Shut the System conducted joint operations with allied groups in September 2025, targeting Barclays and BlackRock assets across the UK and Europe, including supergluing locks at Barclays branches. They also severed fiber optic cables and threw blood red paint at the London headquarters of Clarion Events, organizers of the DSCI Arms Fair in September 2025. Elbit Systems' Aztec West site in Bristol closed unexpectedly in early September 2025 following sustained pressure. The facility appears abandoned, despite a lease until 2029. As Hoda Amouri put it, the ban has backfired massively. The coming weeks are pivotal. If Amouri wins her stay application, the prescription lifts swiftly. If the government prevails, the fight drags on, but the streets won't wait. Escalation is not just justified, it is essential. The movement has already won the argument. Now to win the reality.
Well, Hoda, there's a number of legal consequences here. You touched on some of them in the previous segment. I wonder whether you can just summarise, what's going to happen now.
Yeah, so as was shown, we will be putting in submissions that the quashing order should be coming to force straight away, basically. And the ruling from the High Court already said that they propose a quashing order of the ban, which means it would basically be like it never existed. Now, as the government are appealing or have stated that they are looking to appeal, then they may ask for that order to not come into force so that we would stay prescribed. We'll be arguing against that. And we'll be arguing that basically the ban should be lifted. It's proven unlawful. It would be, this whole situation is extremely unprecedented. So there isn't really a pattern or a case law to follow in these types of circumstances, but it would be extremely strange for a ban to be proven unlawful, to be infringing on people's human rights, and for it to be allowed to stay in place. So, we will be fighting for the ban to be lifted as soon as possible following this ruling, and we expect another hearing in the coming weeks to discuss that.
Right. Okay. Well, David, the Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood, we know that she has previously attended Palestine solidarity marches. I remember when I was in Parliament alongside her back in 2014. Her coming in excitedly telling me that she'd participated in the blockading of a Sainsbury's store in Birmingham because they were selling Israeli goods. What's happened to her? Has she sold her soul?
Well, self-evidently, yes, she has. But of course, this has been greased along with a little bit of cash. So she's got 70-odd grand from Francesca Perrin, who is the daughter of Lord Sainsbury, well-known Zionist, who's, of course, also funded the Labour Party to the tune of $2.5 million after Keir Starmer took over as Labour leader. She's also the single highest recipient, the last election, of donations from Labour Together, the famous Zionist influence shop in which Morgan McSweeney's been involved, but which of course is directed by Trevor Chin, effectively the leader of the British Zionist movement. Yes. And she got £137,000, the highest of any MP from them. Okay. So that this is a huge amount of money which has come from the Zionists. So whether she was always someone who was going to sell her soul, or she'd already sold it out but was only pretending, we don't know. But certainly she's now firmly on side for the Zionists.
Well, it's a tragedy that people are ever willing to sell their principles, isn't it? But Huda, I mean, what are the prospects then of the government overturning this victory?
I think we have a very strong case. We're feeling very confident, especially on the back of this High Court ruling. I think they're just dragging this on needlessly. And you know, in the end, I believe that we are going to win, and Palestine Action's ban will be lifted. It's just a matter of when. And I'm hoping that that's going to be sooner rather than later. But we are confident going into the Court of Appeal. We won in front of 3 very pro-government judges. And so, you know, it's looking like we can only go up from here, to be honest.
Well, I think you've got the British public with you, Huda, so all the very best of luck with that. But David, I mean, what do you make then of the continued direct action that's being taken against arms companies that are complicit in the genocide?
Well, it's fantastic that it's continued. I mean, these are all from organisations who are not Palestine Action. Yes. Obviously, since Palestine Action was dissolved, was made illegal, was prescribed, and so there's an indication that there's an appetite for this throughout the movement. These are activities occurring in London, in Sheffield, in Bristol, in Edinburgh, all across the country, essentially. And so what we see is that there is an appetite for this, and it will continue to grow and escalate, I think, whether Palestine Action is deprescribed or not, which now looks like is much more likely to happen, that there will be deprescribed. There will be continued direct action, and let's hope it grows and throttles the ability of the arms firms supplying the Zionists to operate.
Indeed. Well, let's hope so. Well, Huda, I mean, what's your assessment of the future then for the direct action movement?
I think what's happened is direct action has been popularised across the country and across the world as a result of this ban. It really has truly backfired. It made not just Palestine Action a household name, but it made people aware of the tactic of direct action and the presence of Israeli weapons factories across Britain and across the world. So direct action is only going to continue to go from strength to strength. And I really do, and I'm not just saying this, Albert's days are truly numbered in this country. And I think these series of victories are bringing us substantially closer to that point when Albert will be forced to leave completely from Britain. You know, when we started Palestine Action, we knew that there would be every obstacle put in our way before we were completely victorious in our mission. And, you know, I would like to hope that the prescribing us and us defeating that is the final obstacle on the way to complete victory.
Indeed. Well, David, certainly, public consciousness has been substantially raised, hasn't it, by the actions of Palestine Action and indeed the response of the authorities to Palestine Action. But in your opinion, do you think the movement against the genocide then needs to escalate?
Oh, there's clearly a massive need for escalation. I mean, it's the case that mass demonstrations are important, that they keep the issue of Palestine visible. But mass demonstrations will not bring the end of the arms industry supplying the genocide. There needs to be material action taken against these arms firms, every single one of them, and that of course requires direct action. It's not going to be chased out of this country by people protesting, by being, by politely asking them. They have to be forced out by direct action, which closes them down at every single one of them.
Well, the appetite for that direct action remains undimmed. If anything, it's growing, isn't it? But I'm afraid that's all we've got time for today. So I'd like to thank our guest, Huda Mori. And if you want to see more of our content, you can follow the show on X, Facebook, Rumble and Telegram. And make a date to join us again on Palestine Declassified next week, when I'll be back alongside David Miller with more revelations and information that you will not find in the corporate media. But until then, this is Chris Williamson saying bye for now.